The invasion begins. The skies over New York City darkened as massive alien ships descended from the clouds. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, defying human understanding of metallurgy. The invasion of Earth had begun without warning, catching humanity off guard and unprepared. In the heart of the city, Sarah Chen, a former Marine turned NYPD officer, watched in disbelief as panic spread through the streets. People ran in all directions, their screams drowned out by the low, ominous hum of the alien vessels. Sarah's training kicked in, and she began directing civilians to safety, her voice steadied despite the chaos around her. Miles away, in a hidden military facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Hawthorne received the first reports of the invasion. His weathered face, etched with the lines of countless battles, grew grim as he surveyed the holographic displays showing alien ships appearing over major cities worldwide. "How the hell did we miss this?" he muttered, his fists clenching at his sides. The room buzzed with frantic activity as analysts and officers scrambled to make sense of the unfolding catastrophe. A young lieutenant approached, her face pale. "Sir, we're getting reports of energy weapons being deployed in London and Beijing. Our conventional forces they're being obliterated." Hawthorne's jaw tightened. He'd always known humanity wasn't alone in the universe, but he'd hoped first contact would be peaceful. Now, faced with an enemy of overwhelming technological superiority, he realized that hope had been naive. As the alien ships began their assault, raining down beams of searing energy on Earth's defenses, a different scene unfolded in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. Jack Morrison, a reclusive ex-Special Forces sniper, watched the distant lights of Seattle flicker and die as the city fell under attack. His hand tightened on the custom rifle at his side, a weapon he'd hoped never to use again. Jack's dog, Max, whined softly beside him. "I know, boy," Jack murmured, scratching behind the German shepherd's ears. "Looks like retirement's over." Back in New York, Sarah had managed to guide a group of civilians into the relative safety of the subway tunnels. The ground shook with each impact above, dust and debris raining down on the huddled masses. Sarah's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. She knew the aliens would eventually find them here, but maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fight back. In orbit, aboard the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Zixlar observed the invasion with cold satisfaction. His elongated fingers danced over holographic controls, directing the assault with precision born of centuries of warfare. "Pathetic," Zixlar hissed, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the destruction below. "These humans offer no challenge. Their planet will be ours before the rotation is complete." One of his subordinates, a younger alien named Vexithor, approached cautiously. "Supreme Commander, we're detecting scattered pockets of resistance. Some of their weapons seem primitive, but effective against our ground forces." Zixlar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Impossible. Our shields are impenetrable to their technology. Increase the intensity of the orbital bombardment. I want their will to fight crushed utterly." As the alien assault intensified, humanity's formal resistance crumbled. Air forces were swatted from the sky like insects, tanks and artillery reduced to molten slag. But in the chaos and destruction, something unexpected began to take shape. General Hawthorne, realizing the futility of conventional warfare against such an advanced enemy, made a desperate decision. "Get me every sniper, every marksman, every sharpshooter we have," he ordered. "And I mean everyone. Military, law enforcement, civilians. If they can shoot, I want them." His staff looked at him in confusion, but Hawthorne's eyes blazed with determination. "The aliens think they've won, that we're beaten. But they don't know humans. We're survivors, adaptable. And right now, we need to adapt or die." As night fell on the first day of the invasion, the alien forces began to spread out from the major cities, confident in their victory. But in the shadows, in the rubble of fallen buildings and the depths of dense forests, humanity was far from defeated. Sarah Chen, having led her group of survivors to a secure location, found herself recruited into Hawthorne's desperate plan. Her sharpshooting skills, honed in the Marines and maintained in the NYPD, would be put to the ultimate test. Jack Morrison, driven by a sense of duty he thought he'd left behind, made his way through the wilderness toward Seattle, Max at his side. His expert knowledge of guerrilla tactics and long-range elimination would prove invaluable in the coming fight. And across the globe, others like them, the hidden, the skilled, the determined, prepared to strike back against an enemy that believed victory was already theirs. As dawn broke on the second day of the invasion, humanity stood on the brink. Conventional warfare had failed, governments were in chaos, and alien forces seemed unstoppable. But in the growing light, a new resistance was taking shape, silent, invisible, and deadly. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had ignored the potential of human snipers, dismissing them as primitives with outdated weapons. They were about to learn, at a terrible cost, just how wrong they were. In the coming days, the invaders would face an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. The war for Earth was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The hidden resistance. As the alien invasion entered its second week, the face of warfare changed dramatically. The initial shock of the attack had worn off, replaced by a grim determination that spread through the remaining human forces like wildfire. General Hawthorne's plan, born of desperation, had evolved into a coordinated global strategy. Snipers, both military and civilian, had become humanity's most potent weapon against the technologically superior invaders. Sarah Chen crouched in the ruins of what had once been a Manhattan skyscraper, her rifle trained on an alien patrol below. The invaders moved with an arrogance born of easy victory, their shield generators humming softly. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger, her breathing slow and controlled. "Steady," she whispered to herself, remembering her training. "Wait for the shot." The aliens had learned quickly that their energy shields were useless against projectile weapons, a weakness the human snipers exploited mercilessly. As one of the patrol's officers paused to examine something, Sarah saw her opportunity. The crack of the rifle was lost in the ambient noise of the ruined city, but the effect was immediate. The alien officer's head exploded in a spray of viscous fluid, and chaos erupted among the patrol. Sarah was already moving, sliding down debris and disappearing into the labyrinth of destroyed buildings before the aliens could pinpoint her location. Her heart raced, but a grim smile played on her lips. Another successful hit, another blow against the invaders. Miles away, in the outskirts of Seattle, Jack Morrison was engaged in a different kind of warfare. He had gathered a small group of survivors, teaching them the art of guerrilla tactics and long-range marksmanship. "Remember," he told his makeshift squad, "we're not here to fight fair. We're here to survive, to hurt them, to make them regret ever coming to our planet." One of his students, a young woman named Emily who had been a competitive shooter before the invasion, nodded solemnly. "How do we know it's making a difference? They still control the skies, the cities." Jack's eyes hardened. "Because they're scared now. Look at how they move, always in groups, always watching the shadows. We got them jumping at ghosts, and that's exactly what we need." As if to prove his point, an alien shuttle roared overhead, flying erratically and much higher than necessary. The invaders were learning to fear the ground, the domain of the human snipers they couldn't seem to root out. On the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Zixlar was facing a crisis he had never anticipated. The holographic displays showed a sea of red markers, each representing a fallen alien soldier or destroyed piece of equipment. "How?" he raged, his normally composed demeanor cracking. "How are these primitives inflicting such damage? Where are they hiding?" Vexthor, now promoted due to the high casualty rate among the officer corps, approached cautiously. "Supreme Commander, we believe the humans are using some form of projectile weapon that our shields can't stop. They strike from concealment, often from extreme ranges our sensors can't penetrate." Zixlar's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "Impossible. No primitive species could possess such skill, such technology. It's not the technology, sir, Vex Thor explained hesitantly. It's their adaptability, their knowledge of the terrain. They're using simple weapons, but with extraordinary skill. The Supreme Commander's mandibles clicked in agitation. Then we will strip away their terrain. Increase orbital bombardment. I want every forest burned, every ruined building leveled. Leave them nowhere to hide. As the alien assault intensified, the human resistance adapted once again. In the Rocky Mountain facility, General Hawthorne received reports from around the globe, each telling the similar story. The aliens were getting desperate, resorting to widespread destruction in an attempt to flush out the snipers. They're playing right into our hands, Hawthorne muttered, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. The more they destroy, the more cover they create for us. He turned to his staff, determination etched on his face. Get word to all our cells. Phase 2 begins now. It's time to take the fight to them. Across the world, snipers like Sarah and Jack received their new orders. The strategy was evolving, moving from mere survival to active resistance. Targets were prioritized: alien command centers, communication hubs, and most importantly, their anti-gravity engines. In New York, Sarah led a team through the underground tunnels, emerging near what had once been Central Park. The aliens had converted it into a massive landing zone, their ships hovering just above the ground. There, Sarah whispered, pointing to a particularly large vessel. That's our target. Those pylons underneath. They control the anti-grav. Take them out, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Her team nodded, spreading out to find optimal firing positions. Sarah felt a moment of pride. These men and women, once ordinary civilians, were now some of the deadliest fighters on the planet. In Seattle, Jack and his squad prepared for a similar mission. They had identified a key alien communication hub, a towering structure that pulsed with ethereal energy. One shot, Jack instructed, his voice low and intense. That's all we'll get before they pinpoint our location. Make it count. As night fell, the human snipers struck in perfect coordination. Across the globe, alien ships suddenly lost power, crashing to the ground in spectacular fireballs. Communication networks went dark, leaving invading forces confused and isolated. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens felt true fear. They had come expecting an easy conquest, and instead found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't defeat with their advanced technology. In the shadows, in the rubble, and in the wild places of the earth, humanity's hidden resistance grew stronger. The aliens had made a terrible mistake in underestimating human ingenuity and determination. Now they would pay the price, one silent shot at a time. The war was far from over, but as dawn broke on a new day, hope began to spread among the human survivors. They were no longer merely resisting, they were fighting back. And with each successful mission, each downed alien ship, the balance of power shifted ever so slightly. The invaders had come seeking an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, a species with an unbreakable will to survive. The snipers were just the beginning. Humanity was rising, and the aliens would soon learn the true cost of their invasion. Turning the tide. As the third month of the alien invasion dawned, a palpable shift had occurred in the conflict. The once unstoppable alien war machine now moved with hesitation, their operations hampered by the constant threat of invisible human snipers. In what remained of Chicago, Sarah Chen huddled with her team in the ruins of a collapsed skyscraper. Their latest mission had been a resounding success. An alien fuel depot reduced to a smoldering crater with just 3 well-placed shots. "We're making a difference," Sarah told her squad, her eyes gleaming with fierce pride. "Every day, we push them back a little further." One of her team, a former accountant named Mike, nodded in agreement. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I spent all those weekends at the shooting range. Who knew it would help save the world?" Their moment of quiet celebration was interrupted by the crackle of their secure radio. General Hawthorne's voice, tired but determined, came through. "Attention all units. We've received intelligence on a high-value target. The aliens are bringing in a new weapon, something big. We need eyes on it. Chen, your team is the closest. Can you handle it?" Sarah exchanged glances with her squad, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes. "We're on it, General. Just point us in the right direction." Across the country, in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, Jack Morrison and his team were engaged in a different kind of battle. They had become experts in psychological warfare, using their sniper skills to keep the aliens in a constant state of paranoia. "Look at them," Jack murmured, observing an alien patrol through his scope. The invaders moved erratically, their heads swiveling constantly, weapons raised. "They're jumping at shadows." Emily, his star pupil, smiled grimly. "Good. Let them waste energy looking for ghosts. Makes our job easier." Just then, Jack's radio crackled to life. It was Hawthorne, relaying the same information he'd given Sarah. "Morrison, we need your team to provide support. The target is being moved through your sector. Coordinate with Chen's group and take it out." Jack acknowledged the order, a hint of excitement in his voice. This was what they'd been waiting for, a chance to strike a real blow against the invaders. On the alien flagship, now permanently stationed in high orbit to avoid sniper fire, Supreme Commander Zixlar was facing a mutiny. His officers, once loyal and confident, now argued openly about the best course of action. "We should withdraw," one shouted, his mandibles clicking furiously. "This planet is not worth the losses we're sustaining." "Coward," another retorted. "We are the Galactic Imperium. We do not retreat from primitives." Zixlar silenced them with a thunderous roar. "Enough. We will not be defeated by these savages with their primitive projectile weapons. Our new weapon will turn the tide. Once deployed, no sniper will dare show themselves again." Vexthor, now Zixlar's most trusted advisor, approached cautiously. "Supreme Commander, the weapon is en route to the primary testing site. But our forces are reporting increased human activity in the area. They fear an ambush." Zixlar's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. They cannot know about the weapon. Increase the escort. I want that device protected at all costs." As the alien convoy moved slowly through the ruins of what had once been the American Midwest, Sarah and her team raced to intercept. They traveled light and fast, using the devastated landscape to their advantage. Jack's team, meanwhile, had already set up a series of sniper nests along the convoy's projected route. They waited with the patience of hunters, their rifles trained on key points. The alien weapon, when it turning the tide. The alien weapon, when it finally came into view, was unlike anything the human snipers had ever seen. It was a massive, pulsating orb of energy, suspended between two heavily armored transports. The air around it shimmered and distorted, as if reality itself was bending in its presence. Sarah's team arrived just as the convoy entered a narrow pass between two collapsed overpasses. She quickly assessed the situation, her mind racing through potential strategies. "Jack, do you copy?" she whispered into her radio. "Loud and clear, Sarah," came the reply. "We're in position. What's the plan?" Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the alien formation. "That thing in the middle, that has to be the weapon. We take that out, no matter what. But those transports, they're going to be a problem." "Leave the transports to us," Jack said, a hint of confidence in his voice. "You focus on the big glowing ball of death." Sarah nodded, even though Jack couldn't see her. "All right, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." The next few moments were a symphony of precision and chaos. Jack's team opened fire first, their high-caliber rounds punching through the armored transport's weak points. The aliens, caught off guard, scrambled for cover that didn't exist. Sarah and her squad targeted the escort vehicles, systematically eliminating drivers and gunners. The convoy ground to a halt, trapped in the narrow pass. But the alien weapon remained untouched, its pulsating glow intensifying. Sarah realized with a chill that it was activating. "Everyone, focus fire on the orb," she shouted into her radio. "Hit it with everything you've got." A barrage of sniper fire converged on the alien weapon. At first, it seemed to have no effect, the bullets disappearing into the shimmering field around the orb. But as more and more rounds hit their mark, something began to change. The weapon's glow became erratic, pulsing wildly. Cracks appeared in its surface, spreading like a spider web. "Keep firing," Sarah yelled, her own rifle adding to the onslaught. Suddenly, the air was filled with a high-pitched whine. The alien weapon's glow intensified to an almost blinding level. "Take cover," Jack's voice crackled over the radio. Sarah and her team barely had time to duck behind the rubble before the weapon exploded. The blast was unlike anything they had ever experienced. A wave of energy that seemed to distort space itself, followed by a thunderous boom that shook the very ground. When the dust settled, Sarah peeked out from her cover. The alien convoy was gone, vaporized in the explosion. The pass had been widened, the collapsed overpasses disintegrated. In the center of it all was a perfect, circular crater. Is everyone okay?" Sarah asked shakily, checking on her team. One by one, her squad reported in. Miraculously, they had all survived. Jack's team, too, had made it through the blast. As the reality of what they had just accomplished sank in, a cheer went up from the human snipers. They had done it. They had destroyed the alien's secret weapon. But their celebration was short-lived. The radio crackled to life, General Hawthorne's voice coming through urgently. "Chen Morrison, do you copy? What's your status?" "We're here, General," Sarah replied. "The weapon has been destroyed. I repeat, the alien weapon is destroyed." There was a moment of silence. Then Hawthorne's voice returned, filled with a mix of relief and concern. "Outstanding work. But we're picking up massive energy signatures in orbit. Whatever you just did, it's got the aliens rattled up. Brace for retaliation." As if on cue, the sky lit up with the telltale signs of orbital bombardment. The aliens were striking back, and this time, they weren't holding anything back. "Everyone, move," Sarah shouted, urging her team into action. "We need to find cover, now." As they raced through the ruins, dodging energy blasts from above, Sarah couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Yes, the aliens were retaliating with all their might, but the fact that they were resorting to such desperate measures proved one thing: humanity's resistance was working. The silent snipers were turning the tide of the war. The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, Sarah allowed herself to believe that they might actually win this fight. As another explosion rocked the ground behind her, she gritted her teeth and ran faster. The aliens had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. Now they would pay the price for their arrogance, one silent shot at a time. The alien counterattack. The destruction of their secret weapon marked a turning point in the war. The aliens, enraged and desperate, launched a massive counteroffensive. The skies above Earth burned with the fury of their orbital bombardment, while waves of troops and machines poured onto the surface. In the ruins of what was once Washington, D.C., General Hawthorne stood in the makeshift command center, his face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Reports flooded in from around the globe, each more urgent than the last. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, her voice strained, "we're losing ground in Europe. The aliens have deployed some kind of walking tanks. Our snipers can't penetrate their armor." Hawthorne's jaw clenched. "What about Asia?" "Holding for now," another officer reported. "But our teams in Siberia say the aliens are using some kind of atmospheric processor. It's changing the weather, making it impossible to maintain concealment." The general took a deep breath, his mind racing. The aliens were adapting, learning from their mistakes. but so were we. "Get me Chen and Morrison," he ordered. "It's time for Phase 3. Across the Atlantic, in the war-torn streets of London, Sarah Chen and her team were engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The aliens had deployed hunter-killer squads, specially trained to root out human snipers. Sarah's group had been on the run for days, snatching moments of rest between frantic firefights. "They're getting smarter," Sarah muttered, peering through a broken window at the alien patrol below. "Using our own tactics against us." Her radio crackled to life. "Chen, this is Hawthorne. Status report." Sarah ducked back into cover before responding. "We're alive, sir, but barely. These new alien units, they're something else. We can't stay in one place for more than a few hours before they're on us." "I know," Hawthorne's voice was grim, "but I need you to hold on. We're initiating Phase 3. Can your team make it to the rendezvous point?" Sarah looked at her squad, seeing the exhaustion in their eyes, but also the unwavering determination. She nodded, even though Hawthorne couldn't see her. "We'll be there, sir. Count on it." Meanwhile, in the frozen wastes of Siberia, Jack Morrison and his team were facing a different kind of hell. The aliens' atmospheric processors had turned the already harsh environment into a swirling maelstrom of ice and wind. Visibility was near zero, and the cold was unlike anything they had ever experienced. "How the hell are we supposed to fight in this?" Emily shouted over the howling wind, her rifle caked in ice. Jack, his beard frozen solid, managed a grim smile. "We adapt. We survive. It's what humans do best." Their radios sputtered to life, Hawthorne's voice barely audible through the static. "Morrison, Phase 3. Rendezvous." Jack strained to hear, but the message was lost in a burst of interference. He turned to his team, determination in his eyes. "All right, people. Sounds like the general's got a new plan. We need to get to the rendezvous point, whatever it takes." As human snipers around the world began to converge on hidden locations, the aliens pressed their advantage. In orbit, Supreme Commander Zixlar watched with savage satisfaction as his forces pushed the humans back. "You see," he hissed to his officers, "the primitives falter, their resistance crumbles. Soon, this world will be ours." Vex Thor, however, looked troubled. "Supreme Commander, our casualties are still mounting, and our intelligence suggests the humans are massing for something." Zixlar's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. They're beaten. This is merely the last gasp of a dying species." But deep down, a seed of doubt had taken root. These humans had proven far more resilient, far more dangerous than any species the Galactic Imperium had ever encountered. What if? He shook off the thought. No, victory was at hand. All that remained was to crush the last pockets of resistance. "Prepare my shuttle," Zixlar commanded. "I will personally oversee the final push." As alien forces swarmed across the planet's surface, the scattered teams of human snipers fought their way through impossible odds. Sarah's group battled street by street through London, using the city's ancient underground tunnels to evade the hunter-killer squads. Jack's team trudged through the Siberian blizzard, fighting off frostbite and alien patrols with equal determination. All across the globe, similar scenes played out. Humanity's best sharpshooters, the silent guardians who had turned the tide of the war, were gathering for one last desperate gamble. In Washington, General Hawthorne received confirmation after confirmation. The teams were assembling, battered but unbroken. He allowed himself a small smile. The aliens thought they had won, that humanity was on the ropes. They had no idea what was coming. "All right," he said to his staff, his voice filled with grim determination. "Initiate Phase 3. May God have mercy on us all, because the aliens sure as hell won't." As the orders went out, a new chapter in the war for Earth was about to begin. The aliens had brought their full might to bear, thinking to crush the human resistance once and for all. But they were about to learn, at terrible cost, that backing humanity into a corner was the worst mistake they could have made. The silent snipers were gathering, and the final battle for the fate of Earth was about to begin. Humanity's triumph. The Rendezvous Point was a place of legend, a location so secret that even most of the human resistance didn't know it existed. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a cavern large enough to house a small city, the best snipers from around the world gathered. Sarah Chen arrived with her team, exhausted but alive, having fought their way across an ocean and a continent. Jack Morrison's group stumbled in soon after, still shaking off the frost of Siberia. Similar stories played out as teams from every corner of the globe made their way to this last bastion of hope. General Hawthorne stood on a makeshift platform, surveying the assembled force. These men and women, once ordinary civilians, had become the most effective fighting force in human history. Now, it all came down to this. "Welcome," Hawthorne's voice boomed through the cavern, "to Operation Silent Thunder." A holographic display flickered to life, showing a massive alien ship unlike any they had seen before. "This," Hawthorne continued, "is the aliens' command ship. Our intel suggests that their leader, the one they call Supreme Commander, is personally overseeing the final assault. Our mission is simple. We're going to board that ship and take it down from the inside." A murmur ran through the crowd. It seemed impossible, suicidal even. But then again, so had resisting the alien invasion in the first place. Sarah stepped forward. "With all due respect, sir, how are we supposed to get on board? We're snipers, not space marines." Hawthorne smiled, a rare sight these days. "Excellent question, Chen. That's where this comes in." He gestured, and a section of the cavern wall slid away, revealing a sleek, alien-looking craft. "We've been reverse engineering their technology. This ship will get us on board. As for being space marines, well, you're going to have to adapt. It's what humans do best, right?" Jack chuckled, nudging Sarah. "He's got us there." As the snipers began to prep for the mission, familiarizing themselves with alien tech and zero combat simulations, the mood shifted from desperation to determination. This was it, the final roll of the dice. If they failed, humanity fell. But if they succeeded, high above the Earth, Supreme Commander Zixlar stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, watching with satisfaction as his forces pushed the humans back on all fronts. Victory was at hand. He could taste it. "Supreme Commander," Vexthor interrupted his reverie, "we're detecting an anomaly. A small ship, using our own stealth technology. It's approaching rapidly." Zixlar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Impossible. No primitive species could. He trailed off, a cold feeling settling in his gut. These humans had surprised him at every turn. What if? "Raise shields," he barked. "Prepare for boarders." But it was too late. The human ship, piloted with incredible skill by a former crop duster named Jim, slipped through a gap in the alien defenses. With a bone-jarring thud, it latched onto the hull of the command ship. "Go, go, go," Sarah shouted, leading the charge as the airlock burst open. The snipers poured into the alien vessel, their specialized weapons at the ready. What followed was a battle unlike any in human history. The snipers, trained to fight at long range, now found themselves in close-quarters combat with alien defenders. But they adapted, as humans always do. Their precision and teamwork, honed over months of guerrilla warfare, proved devastating in the confined spaces of the ship. Jack's team secured the engine room, sabotaging the alien drive systems. Emily, proving to be as adept with alien computers as she was with a rifle, hacked into the ship's mainframe, wreaking havoc on their systems. Sarah, leading a small squad, fought her way towards the bridge. The aliens, caught off guard by the audacity of the attack, fell back in disarray. On the bridge, Zixlar watched in growing horror as the humans advanced. "How?" he screeched. "How is this possible?" Vexthor, showing more backbone than any alien had in this war, faced his commander. "You underestimated them, Supreme Commander. We all did. These humans, They're unlike anything we've ever faced. Before Zixlar could respond, the bridge doors blew open. Sarah Chen stepped through the smoke, her rifle trained on the alien leader. Behind her, the rest of the human strike team secured the room. Supreme Commander Zixlar, Sarah's voice was cold as steel. In the name of humanity and every free species in the galaxy, you are hereby relieved of command. For a moment, silence reigned on the bridge. Then, slowly, Zixlar raised his hands in surrender. The mighty leader of the Galactic Imperium, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, had been brought low by the very primitives he had dismissed. As news of the command ship's capture spread, the alien invasion force fell into chaos. Without centralized leadership, their attack crumbled. Human forces, emboldened by the success of Operation Silent Thunder, launched a massive counteroffensive. In the days that followed, humanity emerged victorious. The alien armada, once seemingly invincible, was routed. Those that could fled back to the stars, carrying with them tales of the terrible, adaptable primitives who had done the impossible. As the dust settled and the long process of rebuilding began, Sarah Chen stood with Jack Morrison atop a hill overlooking the ruins of what had once been New York City. The sky, for the first time in months, was clear of alien ships. "We did it," Sarah said softly, still hardly believing it herself. "We actually did it." Jack nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "Yeah, we did. But you know this isn't the end, right? They'll be back, someday. Or maybe something worse will come." Sarah smiled, a fierce, determined grin. "Let them come. Humanity will be ready. We're not just survivors anymore, Jack. We're the defenders of Earth. And heaven help anyone who tries to take our home from us." As the sun set on a free Earth, the silent snipers who had saved humanity looked to the stars. They had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. Whatever the galaxy threw at them next, they would be ready. For they were human, and adapting to overcome the impossible was what they did best.